We do have a timer up front. And the next question comes from Susan Jacobs, and it starts with Mr. Tisei.
As editor of the Jewish Journal, it should come as no surprise that my question would deal with Israel. Do you believe that Israel has the right to defend herself against the looming danger of a nuclear Iran? And if so, what role should the U.S. play? Do you support a military response?
Well, I certainly think that Israel has every right to defend itself. And let me just say, I've been to Israel. I went for 2 weeks on a trade mission with Governor Salucci, and it is an amazing country. And the thing that's most amazing about it is that they share the same values as we do here. And when you're in Israel, you have the right to speak, you have the right to worship, you have the right to think and act as individuals. There's freedom of the press. And this country, Israel, is surrounded by a sea of instability in countries where basic human rights aren't respected. There are no gay rights in any of those Arab countries around Israel. There are no women's rights. And I do think sometimes here in America we lose sight of the fact that they are living in such a terrible neighborhood. We look at it as Americans from a pretty far distance. When you live in Israel, you always have to be worrying about rocket attacks from Hezbollah. If that happened in the United States and a missile was lobbed over from Canada, and it hit Massachusetts, people would put up with that for 30 seconds here in this country. And that's the fear that Israelis live under every single day. And I do think that as far as the United States goes, we have to be very clear and we have to be very strong that Israel is our friend and that their interests, more often than not, coincide exactly with ours. So I would hope that if there is any problems there, that the United States would be a strong ally, a dependable friend, and do what we could to help Israel as best we could. I'm going to be the congressman for this district in the United States, so I'm always going to put our interests first. But there's no better friend in the world that the United States has than the state of Israel.
As a congressman for this district, I've always supported Israel, of course, and the Jewish people, and that has been strong and unwavering on that basis. Israel has a right to exist, has a right to live in peace, and it has a right to protect itself on its own soil against attacks on that basis. And we have a strong alliance and a strong friendship. We don't walk away from our allies, and we won't walk away from Israel. Now, I think actions speak louder than words. And so if you look at that time over history, I have supported every foreign aid military budget for Israel. I have supported giving them the qualitative military edge, and that includes David Sling, it includes the Iron Dome, which has already proven to be a good effect on that situation. I have approved the increasing sanctions against Iran on that, and I think that starting with President Bush, the idea of having international sanctions and increasing them, and following with President Obama has been doing that, to the point now where their currency is devalued 40%, starting to have an effect on that has put us in a position to be able to use diplomacy and to use sanctions and hopefully to get some results before time runs out. Let's be clear, a nuclear-armed Iran is a threat to the United States and to Israel. It's a threat to the world on that, and we are not going to let them have nuclear arms. So we need to confront these challenges, and as allies, we need to consult ahead of time. And we need to make sure that we work together on this, and if anybody has a disagreement, we should resolve it behind closed doors and come out in a unified front to make sure on that. So we need to do this, and we need to keep moving forward. My actions speak louder than words, and I think it's been very clear entirely.
So, I was raised Jewish. I'm not as Orthodox as my parents were, and nowhere near as Orthodox as my grandparents were. But I understand what Israel is and what it means. Israel is not just an ally to the United States. Israel is a place, homeland, where the Jews said, in this place, we will be responsible for our own security. In this place, we will not depend on others, because in the past we have taken their assurances, you are safe here. In this place, we understand that we must defend ourselves against people who do want to eliminate Jews from the earth. That is the stated purpose of Iran. Ahmadinejad has said that Israel needs to be wiped from the face of the earth. The charter of Hamas In the charter, it says, you shall never make peace. You shall never work honestly in peace process, because our entire purpose is to eliminate the state of Israel. In the face of that thing, how can there be any question about whether or not Israel has a right to defend itself? How can there be any question about whether or not people have a right to preserve their cultural heritage? And that's what Israel is. The problem with our foreign aid right now is that we are giving foreign aid to everybody because we think that's how we can buy goodwill. We think that if we give Yasser Arafat, who had $1 billion when he died, we think that if we gave him $1 billion, he was going to be a friend. Yasser Arafat was never a friend to the Jewish people. He was never a friend to the United States. Saddam Hussein, we gave him tons of money. He was never a friend to the United States. He was never a friend to the Jewish people. We have a history of supporting countries. The largest arms deal ever, we sold weapons to Saudi Arabia. I believe it was a $60 billion deal. In Saudi Arabia, women are not allowed to inherit property. They're not allowed to drive cars. They're not allowed to be out in public without a man to chaperone them. Why are we selling weapons to these people? In Yemen, it is legal for a husband to rape his wife. Why are we giving foreign aid to these people? We need to understand that foreign aid has to be something that we know goes to the rich people in the country. Ron Paul said that foreign aid is taking money from poor people in America and giving it to rich people in foreign countries. And invariably, that is what we have ended up doing. We have to recognize that the way that foreign aid gets distributed to countries is a complete disaster at this point in time. The best thing we can do is say, there's a level of individual responsibility. And in supporting Israel, the Jewish people of America have recognized that. The diaspora has recognized that. We have taken it upon ourselves to make sure that Israel, even in the case of a president who is not an enemy of Israel, but he's certainly not a friend, even a president like that, we do not depend on the United States for the security of Israel. Israel depends on itself and on the collection of Jews around the world for its own security.
Okay. 30 seconds.
I would just say I agree with what Dan said as far as foreign aid, and I would question whether the United States should be giving additional foreign aid to help bail out Egypt right now, where the Muslim Brotherhood, just recently during the attacks on our embassy, they tweet in Arabic to go down and protest and incite people to attack the embassy, but in English they say something totally different. And these new governments that have come to being, I think the United States, again, has to be very strong and very clear that they need to respect religious differences, they need to respect individual rights, and if they're going to be friends with the United States and allies.
Mr. Tierney?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I always support foreign aid, particularly military foreign aid for Israel, and I think it's important that we continue to do that. So it's a degree of foreign aid that you want to support, and I think that's important. But I was one of those people working on the Kerry Lugar-Berman bill with respect to Pakistan that was upset with the way that our money was going directly into the treasury of Pakistan and not getting the results that should have been there. And we worked under that bill to make sure that there were conditions and that the money would not be released until we were sure that what was the stated purpose of both governments against the existential threat that we shared was actually being accomplished. So there has to be a high degree of accountability on foreign aid when it is given.
The final question I didn't answer, I apologize for not getting to it, is what is the threat of a nuclear Iran? It's important to recognize that Pakistan already has nuclear weapons. Pakistan was hiding Osama bin Laden. Pakistan, within their military, has Taliban active members. They have the bomb. Isn't Pakistan already a great threat to us? How much of a greater threat is a nuclear Iran? I don't want to see Iran get a nuclear weapon. I think that it absolutely is a threat to the world. However, I am not willing to commit sending troops to Iran to engage in another war.
Thank you.